coming. I didn't get anything from him. I only got it from you, and here you are.
And here I am. I
So-
mean, yeah, I mean,
Wow.
This
What-
guy's,
what-
he's figured out how to be two places at once.
what dedication.
Yeah, I thought you weren't here,
Yeah.
I'm
but here you are.
I know.
Yeah.
Here I am.
It's a hologram.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't think I was gonna make it back to town in time, but here I am. And,
Good
you know, what better time, what better place to be on a Tuesday night?
Oh, he's here.
Man.
Have a full house.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, this is like,
And
this is like.
Juan, you're the witness here. You're the first person to be in the audience while we have
Wow.
all
Ellen?
of us here in
Yeah.
person, no one on Zoom.
Yeah.
Jeff.
All right, we are up and rolling.
Okay,
Wow.
all right, we'll go ahead and get started. Remind everybody and myself to make sure that you have the light on when you speak into the microphone so that it's recorded. So welcome to Planning Commission, October 5th, 2021. We have with us tonight, everyone from Planning Commission. So we have Troy Slade from Planning Commission, Ethan Allen, John McKay, Alan McDonald, Ed Bush, and the newest member, Jeff Davis, who's joining us for the first week today, and myself, Jane Greiner. From the city, we have with us Austin Roy, the city planner, and I don't see Jed on, is he on?
He is on, yep.
Okay, and Jed Bush is, Jed Bush,
No,
oh, Jed Muhlstein.
my cousin.
Your cousin.
Oh, you're almost famous there. Jed Muhlstein, the city engineer, is with us. Marla will be recording this, transcribing it later. Is that right, from the recording?
Correct, yeah.
So make sure that when you do speak, your microphone is on and you speak into the microphone so that that helps her when she does the transcribing of the meeting. So we're going to start with a prayer by Troy Slade, and then John McKay will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are thankful to be gathered here this night, and we're thankful for this wonderful city which we live in, and for the safety and the opportunities which we enjoy. We ask you to bless us this night that we can be able to discuss these things and be able to represent the citizens of this community. And we ask you to please bless this community, that it can be a safe, wonderful place for the people in it to live and to participate in the activities here. And these present blessings we ask we do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Public comment is the next item on the agenda. So anyone wishing to comment on any item that's not on the agenda can bring it forward at this time. Juan, do you have anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, and did we have any emails from anyone that are we still taking comment by email or not?
We are not,
Okay.
no longer taking. email
Okay, I need to
comments.
remember that. So, okay, so then we'll move on from the public comment section to our action items. And the first action item we have is going to be a public hearing regarding an ordinance with about our electronic signs. So first we'll have that introduced to us and then we'll hold the public hearing.
All right, so if you all of you might remember, we amended our electronic message display sign ordinance probably sometime last year. And since then, some new electronic signs have gone in at the elementary schools here in Alpine, so Alpine Elementary as well as Westfield Elementary. They're new and they're really bright and they stay on all night long apparently. So Councilman Greg Gordon has received some complaints about this, and so he has proposed some language here to amend the ordinance to kind of reduce the hours that those signs can be illuminated to hopefully reduce the impact on the neighborhoods. So the language that we have drafted here tonight, I'll just go ahead and read how this would read. Electronic message displays shall only be illuminated or active during the following times. A, from an hour before to an hour after student instruction period begins and ends. And B, from a half hour before to a half hour after an after school event begins and ends. And so that's the proposed language. It's here for a public hearing and recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Okay, and did Greg Gordon submit the actual language proposal with those timeframes, or were those did any study go into where those timeframes came from?
Those times came from Greg Gordon.
Okay. All right, and were the schools or anyone involved in PTA or anything notified of this ordinance change that we were having a public hearing tonight?
So Councilman Gordon did speak with the principal of each school, and they both felt like this was a reasonable. They didn't seem to think that this would be an issue, running it during these hours.
I did find it interesting that in the old ordinance, we did have a restriction that they had to be off at night. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting.
8 PM.
Yeah.
Right, at
Yeah,
8 PM
so-
and not on.
So
6 a.m.
Yeah,
in the
we'll go
morning.
ahead and open the public hearing to all the
Right.
comments here, but I have a
Running
few
of all
questions
this.
about this, yeah.
Should
So
be
we will
good
go
anyway.
ahead and open the public hearing. If anyone would like to comment on the changes to this ordinance, please do so now. Okay, for lack of public comment, we will close the public hearing. And now the council, the planning commission members can discuss this. And what are your opinions and such, so.
Well, I've driven by the schools, right?
Mhm.
They're very bright signs and I'm not even sure they meet the 4 feet height by 6 feet ordinance because they look kind of tall.
Do the size, does the size, has anyone in compliance checked to see if they're the right size?
Right.
the plans that were submitted were 4 feet by 6 feet.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the city's had anybody actually go out there with the tape measure to see if they are that size.
Maybe because they're very bright that they just look larger in
Yeah.
life when you
Mhm.
drive by them.
Mhm.
That may be.
So, I mean, in my opinion, this seems really restrictive for an hour. Like, why would the sign even need to be on during the middle of the day? Are these like signs that have a banner going by like they have at Mountainville Academy? Is it like a ticker tape type sign, or is this just like an illuminated sign that you
Whatever
can?
they program.
It's,
It's like a
it's a-
diamond vision sign.
It's
Yeah.
essentially like a
Yeah.
TV, it's basically an outdoor TV and
Okay.
they can put whatever they want on there.
Changes color.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
does the whole
Okay.
They
thing,
can put-
right, so, yeah.
So it's just not like a sign with just lettering across it like
No.
Alpine Elementary used to
No.
have?
No, this is
no,
much
no.
more like, it's nothing like the Mountainville. This is way more advanced. This is like almost like a high definition TV. They can throw
Oh.
anything up on it.
Wow, I need to go by the schools more often, apparently.
yeah.
Comment.
So I guess I have some pretty strong feelings about these signs. And I've got a lot of feedback over time, even before I was on the planning commission. That was one of the things people would just always talk about to me, is like, why in the heck did Alpine even allow these signs, you know?
Mhm.
So has that ship already sailed? I mean, are we?
Well,
I mean-
I think it has, because they're up.
Okay.
It used to be that we didn't even allow lighted signs. It was just, your
Yeah.
sign
Too
couldn't
light.
have lighting around it. And then, I don't know what point that changed, because then I saw like the State Farm sign, like signs like that didn't used to be allowed, but that was
Yeah.
before I
I
got
mean,
here.
I don't know, the junior high might still have the sign, so I think that
Mhm.
was the first illuminated sign, and it really, so the ordinance, to kind of provide some history on it, it was kind of those monochrome signs, so like the amber colored,
Mhm.
Yeah.
very basic. That was the kind of the electronic signs, and our ordinance was written for those kind of signs, with those kind of signs in mind. And it was just barely last year that Alpine, I guess Alpine Elementary got a grant or something,
Mhm.
probably COVID money.
Mhm.
And so they wanted to upgrade their signs. And so both of the elementary schools at the same time said, hey,
Mhm.
your code is antiquated. Signs nowadays are all electronic, they're all LED and so the proposal was, they proposed that the ordinance be amended to allow those types of displays.
I don't recall doing that.
Well, Jane, if the personal injury attorneys can have big flashy.
Exactly.
In our school.
They absolutely should. I just don't recall the change.
So-
I must have been asleep that meeting, but it's okay.
So I have a question. I mean, just, you know, again, to air all sides of this,
Mhm.
play devil's advocate because I'm a devil. enjoy it.
Yes, you do that a lot. I've noticed.
Speaking to the
Calm.
microphone.
Oh, speaking of the microphone.
So we can all hear that you're a devil.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's already known. So I'm gonna assume that one of the purposes of these signs is to put notifications up for
Yeah.
parents. And a lot of parents work, you know, leave relatively early in the morning, work all day, and then come home later in the afternoon or even the early evening. And if we have the signs, if the signs are only running per this proposal, what is an hour before school and then an hour
Basically
after?
during drop off and pickup, I think is the
Yeah,
concept.
so there may be a lot of parents, I mean, for example, single parents, or I don't know, I mean, I just imagine a lot of situations where the hours these signs would actually be running are not hours where parents who need to see the information. I'm assuming there's helpful information.
Yeah,
You know, the schools are posting on these signs. There's a lot of people that may not even see the information because they've been turned off.
yeah, I totally agree. I feel like this is really restrictive. Personally, I understand the need to restrict, to make the light pollution, to bring it down. I personally, if I was gonna suggest something, I would say something more like, you know, as early as 6:30 or something like that, so that people on their way home at least saw it, or 7, but that would be what I think. But other thoughts, ideas?
I find them super distracting,
Mhm.
like for drivers. So it
It's-
seems
they're-
like,
they
it
are
seems to
hard
me,
miss, I'll tell you.
well, it seems to me that a distracting sign in front of a school is not ideal.
Mhm.
So,
Well, but I mean, but the fact that they're too bright, I mean, as Troy indicated, I mean, as Troy brought up, I mean, that ship already sailed. I mean, unless we're gonna get some type of ordinance that, if maybe there's a dimmer
Yeah,
on the
the signs
signs.
are
and we
there.
Get them to, you know,
get
to
'em to-
dim the signs down, and that's a separate issue.
right.
Question about the content at this point, that, and when that content can run. I mean, I'm all about the fact that they're so bright and distracting, and why are we running almost like digital neon signs in a, you know, in a small town?
Right.
But
yeah.
regardless, they're already there. That ship has sailed to some degree unless, you know, they can dim them,
The
or we're
city
going to
approved
impose
it.
some type of dimming and bright requirement, but that's not what's in front of us.
Well,
Yeah,
but
well,
it is
it's
in
hours.
some instance it is, because if they're not on at evening, they're not as bright. Like in the daytime, they're not as bright.
But then in the
Right.
evening, you're also, you know, it is in the evening when there's a lot of people for whom these messages are intended, will see
Yes.
the messages.
And I agree with that point, but I'm not sure I would feel it would be as beneficial I think it would be
So-
beneficial to have the brightness gone.
So for example, if one proposal, if the ordinance was you know, basically, before was, you can't turn them on until 6 AM and they've got to be off at 8 PM.
Yeah.
And the new proposal is 1 hour before school and 1 hour after school, then I guess the issue is, do we think that
Which is gonna
perhaps
be
there's
what,
some
like-
middle ground that's a little more
Yeah.
accommodating of everybody?
And is this a problem because they weren't actually following the current ordinance? I mean, is this a problem because they were on before 6 AM and 8 PM?
So I think it's
Mhm.
a number of issues. Some of the complaints were that they weren't shutting them off at night, and then they're brighter than they thought they would be.
Mhm.
So I think if you look at item 2, it says electronic message displays lumens shall not create a shadow at a distance greater than 30 feet. Well,
Yeah, I was gonna
someone walked
wonder.
by and apparently it makes a shadow at greater than 30 feet, so.
Well, so
Yeah,
then.
well, no, but I was gonna ask about that because
Yeah.
that's specifically put in there to restrict how bright these signs can be, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, you can
And-
turn down the brightness
And
on a
from what I've
display.
seen on these signs, I would be hard pressed to believe wouldn't cast a shadow at 30 feet.
Yeah,
mean,
and I
'cause
think
because
that's
they're
what we
actually-
just have
yeah.
to look at.
They're actually extremely bright.
I think we
mean, you
just
know,
look at the way it's
But
currently
they're not.
implemented. I feel pretty strongly that it needs to be before and after school a considerable length of time so that they're for the parents.
Right,
And if it meets the item number 2 and item number 1, then my recommendation would be to keep it the way it is.
yeah. Have we, yeah, that's kind of my feelings too, actually, is that this seems to be a problem because we're not even following the ordinance the way it was written. So first of all, I would say, if anybody has verified the size of the signs from the city to make sure they actually meet the ordinance, and have they verified that the lumens are correct? And if not, have they asked them to turn it down to the right amount? And then at that point, I would be more inclined to want to change an ordinance rather than change it right now, knowing that we haven't even complied with the other parts of the ordinance. But
Do we know, Austin, it was Jeff Ray? I think Jeff Ray is a good point. I mean, I think for all of us, it would be useful to know if, right now, are a lot of the, are these signs complying with number 2 of the current ordinance, or are they, if there is a dimmer switch, are they jacked all the way up and that's why people are upset? So I mean, are they right now even in compliance with number 2? And if they're not, and if they were required to bring in more in compliance with brightness or lumens, and if they were complying with that, then we would limit, if not completely eliminate, but limit most of the complaints. Then would we be looking? Then would we have, once again, a solution without a problem?
without having to modify an ordinance every time that there's a
But I don't think any
complaint.
of us know.
Well, and
whether we're even in compliance
I
with
think number 2 is really problematic
Mhm.
because you can't, like at night, there's gonna be a shadow anytime. And in the daytime,
Well,
it's gonna
it
depend on
is-
how cloudy it is.
I don't think there will be a
So-
shadow,
No.
because that's why it's written like this,
Yeah,
like
I don't-
light
I don't
pollution,
think
if
so.
it's
I
turned
mean, you
down.
could say, if I'm 100 feet away, there's no way it's casting a shadow.
Shadow.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm 5 feet away, it is. So you could
That's
easily.
That's
test
why
it.
it's written like that, because that is one way to simply measure lumens
Yeah.
without actually having the device that measures lumens.
Yep.
So I don't, I mean,
I'm-
my
I'm gonna
opinion
go
is
to
we should
Alpine
find more.
Elementary after this meeting and I'll.
let us know.
I
And let
mean,
us know if
the-
it's turned off at 8
The,
PM.
the other thing, I mean, this would be, I mean, if the school is agreeable to this, but I have a little bit of time is to understand, how would anybody know that anybody's actually obeying this ordinance to a
Right.
certain degree, right?
Right.
The way it's written.
Right.
Now, you'd have to know what the school hours were specifically,
Yeah.
and, an after-school event, is that a club?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Is that a
It just
play,
makes it way more complicated.
right?
Exactly. So
I
we
mean, it
complicate
seems like then we have to have a definition of what an after-school event is,
Exactly.
into this, because,
Yeah,
you
it could be
know,
color the kindergarten.
the janitor cleaning the bathroom stalls, is that an after-school event? I don't, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
it gets a little bit on the complexity. I could see narrowing the time down if that's a real issue, in here.
Mhm.
But to me, defining kind of just the specific times the sign could be operating is the easiest way of understanding whether somebody's complying or not.
Yeah,
Right.
about what, like,
It
what
it can't go on before this and it can't be on after this, right? Right.
I'd like to see like a daylight to dusk thing, that's me
Yeah,
personally.
or
So it's not
something.
interfering at night, it's not.
Yeah, I can imagine, part of the issue in terms of that time thing is that, as we approach the winter months and it gets dark early.
Yeah,
Then-
it's dark at 5.
Yeah, when it's dark
5
at
PM,
5
people
and,
aren't on their way
whatever,
home.
that they
It's
are
gonna
pretty
be
bright then.
They're gonna be
Yeah.
bright then.
in
I
here.
mean, as a forgetful
Yeah, but
parent, I can't tell you how many times I drove by the elementary school and it was the old fashioned sign, but I'm like, oh yeah, it's parent teacher conference tonight.
Well,
Totally forgot.
what I was thinking, the other issue that is that, I mean, we are still in a pandemic situation. What happens if the school has to get to a virtual
Mhm.
classroom because they're violating, something in the school district for that? You may want to have the sign on a little bit longer at that time to
Mhm.
try to make sure enough parents, are seeing it, right?
Mhm.
And right now, the only emergency thing you could do right now is be designated by the fire chief or the police department,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know,
Yeah. So does anybody have
I don't know.
any thoughts on what they would like to recommend? We can recommend acceptance of this. We can recommend this with modifications. We can table it, we can reject it. I personally, like I said, right now, what's brought before us, I don't know that we're even complying with number 1 or number 2 already. It hasn't been
Yeah.
validated. So.
I guess my opinion is I maybe recommend just tabling it until we understand if those signs are in compliance with 1 and 2, and actually 3 as it stands, right? That
Sure.
they're- That they're turning them off
Without
at
a
night
change,
even,
yeah.
right?
Then,
Yeah.
then.
So do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Okay, let me put my glasses on here. I'll make a motion that, well, I guess we don't recommend that we table the discussion on ordinance 2021-19 electronic signs until we get a definitive feedback that in ordinance 3.25.090 that 1, 2, 3 sections 1, 2, and 3 are being complied with now before we change the ordinance.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Ed Bush. We have a second by Jeff Davis. Any discussion on the motion? Questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Nay. Okay, so that passed unanimously. And so Austin,
Were you an aye or a nay?
I was an aye.
Okay, okay, I just.
No, I said all in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Okay.
That I did say aye. So that passed unanimously. And so Austin, will someone at the city take on the task of verifying the
Yeah, we'll
compliance
look
of
into
those?
that and staff will look into that and we'll
Thank
get
you.
back with you on an answer.
Okay,
If 1, 2, and 3 are
Great.
being met.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
yeah, I think that's great. And I think, you know, if the councilman has any question, I think it's really important that we verify that we're following the ordinance as they're written and not change ordinances without some serious thought.
Well,
So,
the other thing is that we may elect to change it, but it
Right.
would be good to know whether the
Yeah.
sign's brightness are in compliance, you know,
exactly,
you know, and understand,
Yeah.
are they,
yeah,
are
we
they
don't want to
complying
just
already with
Yeah.
the,
quickly change ordinances without full information,
You know.
so,
It would be nice to see them come into compliance with those and then go out and look at them.
yeah.
right, that's what it
exactly.
is,
So
right,
we're
exactly,
educated
right,
and we
there
know what it
might be a
looks like.
change if they
Right,
have
yeah.
to dim the signs, that might not
Yeah.
be as
Change
large a
things,
problem
right.
with people.
And if they're turned off at 8 PM and not on before
Yeah.
6
Because
AM.
they are awfully bright.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to go check them out.
Yeah, you should.
It's the excitement
I
of-
went by Alpine Elementary and I turned in off of Alpine Boulevard,
Uh-huh.
and as soon as you turn the street, you can see the sign all
Yeah.
the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are in neighborhoods by
Changing-
residents. I mean,
yeah,
that makes
changing
perfect sense, so that
colours
could be quite a problem.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I said, oh, I understand why.
Okay, let's move on to action item B, which is the final plat for the Old Moyle Mound PRD, Plat C. So Austin, are you gonna introduce that one? Or is that
Yeah, I'll
Jeff?
go ahead and
Okay.
introduce this. Okay, so this is Old Moyle Mound PRD Plat C. So what you have here on the screen is what the property lines look like currently. So you'll see this, there's a home here on the corner, Mr. Lon Neald's home. And then we have this kind of L-shaped, upside down L-shaped piece here. So the entire Old Moyle Mound subdivision consists of 9 lots. They actually amended the preliminary plat. I think it was last year, in November. And so the whole subdivision is 8.78 acres. This particular plat C is 2.37 acres. And they're proposing 2 lots. So let me go ahead and pull that up here. So you can
And
see.
is it last November then that we had this? Remind me what we did last November. I remember
It
having
was
this in front of us.
November
recently.
2020.
And what was it that we did?
So what happened is they actually went from 10 lots to 9 lots.
Oh, that's right,
And that gave
Right.
them some leeway on the open space.
right. Okay. So this is in addition to
Because
that.
it is a PRD, they're required to meet, they have a certain percentage of open space.
Mhm.
And so in order to make work what they're doing, what they're proposing to do, they had to make that change to the preliminary.
Okay,
Okay. Okay, so this is what they're proposing. It's been overlaid on a kind of satellite image, so you can kind of see.
mhm,
So the L-shaped open space or the existing piece would be developed by creating a new lot on the cul-de-sac here on Quail Ridge Circle. And then the northeast end of it would be added onto that house on the corner. So
mhm,
that would become one larger lot.
mhm.
And then the remaining northwest corner would become open space. added
Which
to an
is-
already existing open space to
And
the
is
west.
that public open space or is that private open space for this development?
It's private open space. So all the open space in this development is private.
Okay,
Um,
and when they did the PRD for this open space, I'm trying to remember back, but what was the benefit to the city for the PRD?
Well, this subdivision was done before my time, so
Okay.
I know that, part of the reason why we do PRDs is to encourage clustering, so to put the lots closer together, preserve kind of the hillsides and the natural areas,
Mhm.
prevent excavation, cut and fill and that kind of thing.
So this was, the benefit was preserving the
The
hillsides?
natural landscape of the area.
Okay. And so this lot 101, I guess it's beside the point because this is already all done. So this just basically makes lot 1 twice as big and adds a lot 2 and then makes the back half of lot 2 open space rather than having lot 2 be long and skinny. It's just got
Correct,
that
yeah,
lot there.
yeah, that's
Okay.
essentially what they're proposing, yep.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like from the diagram, because we've been through this
Yeah.
before, right? That they used to have in the original one, they used to have open space that used to come around and whatever, which now the larger lot 1 now takes,
Mhm.
takes
Well,
that, so.
let's see, that's where the barn is that right? That upper
Yeah.
half of lot 1 is where your barn is, okay, so then that just actually puts it on the lot with your house, which it
Yeah.
wasn't on your house home lot before, okay. And is there any intended use for the open space lot 101 open space? Is there intended use to expand?
We're just gonna landscape it, like the rest of the open space.
Okay.
I think there's 25% open space required.
Mhm.
Right.
If you guys want to come to the microphones.
you need to
Yeah.
come up.
Come up to the mic, that'll be great, sorry, shouldn't ask you questions before you're at the mic.
I'm
Hey,
Long's engineer, Ed Gifford.
Okay,
Let
When-
me,
when
something
the
real,
original-
oh, sorry, Jed wants to interject for a
Okay.
second here.
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you there, Ed. This subdivision, the base density on the PRD requirements requires 9 lots or allows for 9 lots on the base density.
Okay,
And the PRD requirement is that they give 25% open space. It does not define or specify which kind of open space is required to be given to meet that 25%.
mhm.
So they do have a mixture of a little bit of public open space. The public open space is actually in the center of the cul-de-sac. And I believe there's some public open space right there on the southeast corner of lot 1. The rest of it's private open space. When a development gives more than the required amount of open space, that's when the bonus starts to apply. And that's when it does matter what kind of open space is given. You get more density for public open space than you do private open space.
Okay,
So this subdivision started out by them giving more open space, and they were able to get some bonus density up to 10 lots. And as things have developed out and they want to do this final phase here, obviously they've decided that the base density of 9 lots is fine. And so they have adjusted their lot lines to just work with the base density.
gotcha, okay, thanks.
And Jed, it's a PRD because some of the lots are smaller than
Smaller.
40,000 square feet. Is that the case?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, they are at least 20,000 square feet with and they exceed the minimal building space. And the thing is, because Lawn did it with the premise of doing 10 lots, they could have left the open space natural, but what they did is most of it's improved.
Yeah,
And so this that he's gonna add will be remaining oak, and then the open space that doesn't have any landscaping will be grass.
okay,
Because if you look at the scenario of the overall, they have a tennis court down there.
right,
And then the center of this cul-de-sac is maintained by the association, even though it's public open space, but it's a very nice quality development that Lon's done.
And then we have a trail that goes behind most of those lots, circles back and through the center of the roundabout. And we've measured that and it's almost that's a 1/4 mile trail for walking.
Oh, nice.
So it ended up, we like it. The
Yeah.
reason we made those lots smaller, I didn't want great big homes in there. And usually when you have 1 acre lots, I could have got 8 1 acre lots. It would have torn out every bush and tree on that. And a lot of that stuff's probably
Yeah,
100,
true.
200
Yeah.
years old. And we've left it natural and the rest of it's all manicured and landscaped.
Yeah.
So.
That looks great. Okay, so does anyone have any questions for them on this? Okay, thanks. All right, anything, Jed, that you wanted to add to that?
The only other comment from engineering was just simply that they need to meet the water policy for the final phase. That's it.
Okay,
We will.
all right. Sounds good. Okay, any other questions or motion?
I'll make a motion unless there's some discussion or I'll make
think
a
we're
motion,
good.
then we can have discussion on
Yeah.
it, but.
That's a good idea.
I move to recommend that the old Moyle Mound PRD Plot C be approved as long as the water policy be met.
Okay, we have a motion by Alan McDonald,
I'll second it.
a second by John McKay. Okay, does anybody have any questions on it? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Come up to the microphone, though. We would love to hear your comment. So we're going to allow,
That's what my occupation
Comment on
was.
the
I did
signs.
signs and mainly interior signs. And signs has changed so much between now and back then. I mean, LED, less lumen, I mean, it's just really complicated now,
Completely
way up here
different.
for me, but any town, anywhere can put up a sign. I was involved in a chain of stores down in California, Save on Drug, and our big sales were pharmacy and liquor.
Mhm.
And they wouldn't let us put those signs outside. But so what we did is we just inside the glass, inside the store, put big lit signs, and they couldn't do anything about it. So there's so many ways to manipulate and get around. That's a real complicated issue if you get into it.
yeah,
And I admire your idea, you just table it and find out the facts on it. And what is a sign? I mean, I was involved in the bank sign down here on the corner of the roundabout.
yeah,
And there were some problems there, issues.
Yeah.
yeah.
But the sign itself was 6 by 4.
But the
But we got it
implications
up out
of
the
it,
snow.
yeah,
We had to get 18 inches out of the snow. Otherwise, you have a sign that's 2 feet by 6 feet, when it snows here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
unintended implications can
yeah.
happen, huh?
But, I too like less signs, and that was my business, my
Yeah.
life, but,
In your neighborhood, less signs of red.
yeah, no signs in our cul-de-sac.
Keep that cul-de-sac quiet.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We appreciate
you.
you coming.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to give Jeff a unrealistic expectation here because we're done. And it's 7:30.
7:34.
Yeah,
oh, we're out of
here. Communication.
Just 1 second.
Wouldn't been bad, that's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for the
Last
next
week's was-
item on the agenda is communication. So we do have a few communication items that people want to
2 weeks
bring
ago.
up. So do you want to go first, Ellen?
Sure. I just wanted to have a discussion point surrounding the apple slushy or whatever
Oh.
that the process is with Burgess Orchards. That came before us about whether or not we would grant that opportunity. And I mean, no sour grapes or sour cider, so to speak, from my end. But I would just say, again, I know it's only a couple of weekends,
Mhm.
during the fall. But I'll just tell you, this past couple of weekends, driving in and out of town. And then one day, I'd gone out on a long bike ride coming back into town. People are parking pell-mell everywhere,
Yeah,
standing in the median
Yeah.
as cars are going by at 40, 45 miles an hour. kids walking along, doors being opened. I was riding along, trying to watch for cars, trying to watch for kids coming back into town. A driver on the right side started to pull out, saw me, slammed on her brakes. In the meantime, I'd swerved to the left of the fog line as there was a car coming behind me that had to swerve around me. There were people trying to walk from the west side of the road to the east, and it was almost an
disaster.
ambulance situation.
Yeah.
And I was just hoping it wasn't going to be me. I know that's selfish,
No.
but I'm just saying that, like, I've never
disaster.
seen lines for something like that. And I'm
Yeah.
just saying that next year, if they're going to continue to have the type of business activity that they do for those couple of weeks, I would just suggest that the city require them to implement some type of traffic control policy for those
Yeah.
couple of weeks. Is anybody?
So I
been
actually
out
went
of
and talked to
town,
them.
You'll see that that was kind of nuts.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. So I actually pulled over and talked to them. I've been gonna talk to Austin. I actually called the mayor and talked to the mayor. So as was mentioned to us in the previous meeting, the Burgesses have actually sold that to a landowner who, a person from California, to remember his name. And then
Of course.
they have leased it. What's the name of the, Cherry Hill Farms
Cherry
has
Hill Farms,
leased the
yeah.
property from
Right.
them. So, and they're going to plan to run it for several years. They took me back and showed me their parking plans. They're actually going to pave the entrance going in there. They're going to pave another section and have parking in there, as well as they have some parking back around. He said on the U-Pick weekends, they did have signs showing parking. I didn't ever see signs showing parking, but I did mention to them that, you know, even without the U-Pick, the ice cream signs, so they're planning to dig that ice cream area and set it back farther. But my suggestion I talked to the mayor about is maybe at a bare minimum, we have no parking on the far side of the road. Because there are people crossing and it's really dangerous. And I had even suggested some temporary signs from now till the close of the season. So that we don't end the season with a death there. I don't know if they came in, are you aware if they came in and talked to anyone here?
Cherry Hills?
Yeah, I don't think they were planning
No.
to. He was like,
No,
oh, I'm
they-
so glad to talk to someone at the city. So, have you been receiving
I mean,
complaints?
essentially, Clark Burgess just passed the baton off to
Right.
them and they've been running it.
Yeah.
We haven't received a ton of complaints about it, to be honest.
We have.
I have noticed,
Complaint.
and actually, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I actually saw an emergency vehicle there, so I don't know if
Uh-huh.
someone got hit.
There was
but
one
yeah.
accident, I think it was minor, but when we had the public hearing last time about a completely separate subject, probably 3 of the people said, and while I'm here, I want to point out the mess down at Burgess.
Yeah.
And so I brought this up to the mayor. I think, I don't know if you want to go back and bring it up again, but I really do think that we're going to end up with an accident there before the season is out. And if we don't, we're going to be so lucky. But I think that we could ask them to put up some signs at a bare minimum that show that people can pull into park and that say no parking along the far side of the road. I pulled by, I thought they closed at 6 and I went to buy some apples the other night and I just drove on by because the line for ice cream was across the entire length of the property. And I counted over 50 cars on the wrong side of the road, not wrong side, but on the opposite. So that's 50 cars of people had crossed. And now it's dark at whatever time and they're open till 8. So.
Yeah, I see them all the way to the.
Yeah,
houses.
I
They
don't know
go
if we
all the way
want to
to the
talk to the
houses, from
police
house to
chief
house.
about it or something, but
hate to
I
exit
really
that
think it's
way.
an accident waiting to
Go out
happen
of
too.
Alpine
Yeah.
Way.
Yeah, I remember when this first came in and he wanted to do this. And
Mhm.
that was my biggest concern was the parking.
Right.
And I just
Yeah.
said, there's no parking for this and it's on a blind corner. It's gonna be an issue.
Right.
And here we are.
I
and-
thought we rejected it. How did that
Well,
happen?
I think it was I think that was for them to change their side of the property to actually commercial.
Yeah.
They wanted to rezone. I think we rejected rezoning, but I don't think you can
No,
reject.
We were talking about the
I recall
place-
it was
Do you?
Giving them a permit.
For the
to run
shack.
that,
Conditional use permit for
and
the shack,
concerns
okay.
were they don't have any off-street parking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't remember the vote was, I mean, I.
Obviously
I-
it passed somehow. once we got city council.
I know I was a nay.
I don't think we recommended it though, so something
No.
must happen in city council.
Yeah, that could be.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it did get approved eventually. I know that.
So
Yeah.
do they have to come to us next year for another conditional use permit? Or does it just automatically renew?
The conditional use, so I will actually, as we've been talking about this, I want to follow up with our city attorney to see
Mhm.
what powers we have, because I mean, it is a conditional use.
Mhm.
And so I think we have some discretion, we have some power to say, hey, you guys are not
Mhm.
complying, and we have the power to say, no, you can't continue to do that.
I
use.
think we can just, I mean, they were very amiable. The people who run its name is Rowley. I think if we just went to them and said, look, they know it's a problem. And so I think if we just go to them and just say, look, we want you to put signs here and we want you to put an arrow sign that says parking off street. And
Yeah,
I think we just need to go to
I
them.
promise you, they don't want to get sued and
Yeah.
they're
No.
creating
They
a
don't,
dangerous
yeah.
condition.
It's the
Uh,
influencers that are creating the problem.
Is that what I?
It
didn't
is.
know. I had
They're
never seen
posting,
such-
yeah.
I was like, are they selling crack out of
I
that?
know,
shack?
exactly. Like soft serve ice cream with peaches
Yeah, I'm
on
like,
it.
who
It's not
who
that,
lines up that long for ice cream?
it's not.
But
And,
it is, it's
but
become
it
a
is the
popular,
influencers,
Oh.
the influencers, people,
it's kind of the same thing. that happened
somebody
with
that's
Snowshoe.
popular, that's
I'm gonna
got
get-
tens
I've
of
heard about that
thousands of
Facebook
followers,
page. I gotta get
goes
on.
there and they're like, we gotta go there. She went there.
People are
we
coming
gotta
from
go."
out of town to go there,
Yeah,
actually.
because I noticed people were driving, when I was driving by and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a horrendous problem.
Mhm.
And they're at the stand and they're taking pictures and posting. and It's an influencer thing.
It's an interesting phenomenon though, but shows what can happen. When we have what we think is just a little local
Hmm.
use. So great business for those guys, and that's awesome, but we do need to address it. How would you like to approach this? How should we approach this? You want to go to the city attorney?
Well, I think I would like to bring it up with the city attorney, see
Okay.
what he thinks, what is our power as far as the
Yeah,
city.
and can we just
when it
even
comes to
just ask
conditional
them?
use permits. And then, obviously we can just talk to them too,
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be some big
My-
formal.
right,
code
because my
enforcement thing or
concern
something
is
like that.
literally that, like, this weekend, like, every day that goes by, this is an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, and I think just for the city, I mean, look,
Yeah.
as a landowner and a business owner, they should want to be careful and practice some risk mitigation. But as a community, I think we've got a similar obligation
Mhm.
To provide safe.
to provide a little risk mitigation
agree.
and safety. And
And
right now, there's nothing. Again, that's a curve.
Right.
It's 45 miles an hour. It might be
Yeah.
40, but people are still going 45.
Well, people are
50,
going
and
faster
It's a
than that, yeah.
disaster.
right, and
Yeah.
think
And
how
it's a
we'll
blind
feel
curve,
if we
too. I
don't do
mean-
anything about this and something happens, I'll feel terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we could have done something,
You
so.
just, I mean, every time I go by there, you just picture like some kid, like
know.
the mom's putting somebody else in
I
the car and the little
do.
kids kind of.
Yeah.
Right, the
It's
doors
well
are
regarded.
open.
It
Car.
happens
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A kid who can't
Okay.
wait to go get
Yeah.
ice cream, darts out
Yeah.
between two cars, you got no
Ah.
chance to stop.
yeah. Okay, so I'll follow up with you, Austin. If you can shoot me an email once you've talked to the attorney, and I'll follow up with the mayor too. I already brought it up to him a couple nights ago when I felt like I was gonna hit someone. I called him right then. I did. I'm like, Mayor, we need to do something. I don't want to end the summer on a sad note.
Right.
There's no reason that would be horrible.
Do we know how long that's going to be?
I think they said it was the last week, next
But
week.
that was,
Peach
I think that's just
season,
for peach season.
They just had their last boxes of
Apples
peaches
are
this
just
last
starting.
week, but apple season's
We're
still
starting
in
now.
full swing.
Right.
Oh, really?
It's
Yeah.
just getting started,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so they'll have apple pie shakes now.
right, and as we
And
know,
then
it's
hot
getting darker and darker.
It's true. They actually are doing
They
hot
know.
Oh, are
chocolate
they?
and donuts.
So they're probably gonna keep it going as long as they can.
Yeah,
Which is,
I mean,
it's a
it
neat
is
thing,
part of
but-
the year and it's an awesome thing, but we just
Yeah.
gotta have some place to park. Thank you, Alan, for bringing that up.
Yeah, I
I'd
agree.
forgotten about that, so.
Did, another question, we done with that?
Yeah.
Did the Bangor project get presented to city council?
It did not, no, it
We
was
denied
basic, it'll be presented next week.
Yeah.
So they have not seen that yet.
What was the other thing?
The other thing, I mean, I had one, because I've
Uh-huh,
been
go
getting
ahead.
some phone calls. It's on the property that's being built at 415 East View Lane. It's a very large house that's being built. I think it has an indoor tennis court.
Oh, is that the one we went and
Yeah.
looked at on the
That-
field trip?
No, I don't think we
didn't look at it. on the
didn't look
field
at
trip.
that one.
415 Eastview Lane.
Yeah, it's around the
Wait,
corner.
whose
from-
house is
I
that,
don't
Jeff?
know, it's
415.
just,
It's in Heritage Hill.
Is that
Yeah.
west of Alpine Boulevard or east of Alpine Boulevard?
it's on the other side of Heritage Hill.
It's west.
Okay,
Yeah.
West,
It's,
yeah.
yeah, it's by the new lots they're building up there, the. new-
So if,
Okay,
yeah,
all
so
right.
if you go into the ridge, head towards the ridge up Elk Ridge, and before
Okay.
you get into the ridge, make a left,
Yeah.
right? That's
okay,
east. that's-
because Eastview Lane also goes down
Yeah.
towards East.
That's, you can't, I
It's
mean, you
as
can't
go.
miss the construction. right?
Okay.
I mean, and so, I mean, there are people that are worried that, it's not meeting code because they see very large building.
Yeah,
Going
yeah,
in.
we've actually
Right.
fielded some complaints as
Okay,
staff has
I'm
looked
sure
at
you've
it.
heard
We've
about this.
Reviewed the plans.
Yeah.
It does meet the code.
Yeah.
is it one of the
It-
areas that have been built
it
up?
had- So the lot is unique. I think that it
It's larger than
makes
the
the
other.
impact more
Yeah.
dramatic because, so first of all, they're building this house back probably twice as far as any other home in the subdivision.
And it goes up a
And
gradual.
so everybody,
hill,
when they
doesn't
look out their back window, they see this house in their
It's against the
backyard.
hillside. Oh,
essentially.
because they're farther
And it's
back.
up on it's up higher than every
Okay.
other lot,
'Cause it's
just
an
because of the
upslope.
natural
I know
contours
which
of
one
the
it is
land.
now. Okay, and they've built it against the slope and left the main part of their yard in their front yard.
Yeah, so their yard is really deep, but their
Yeah.
house is tucked away back in.
Yeah,
it,
'cause
but
that-
it's up on the hill.
Okay, I know which
That
one.
lot
And it's a
is the
lot, it's a
lar-
very
yeah, it's
large
large.
home. It
It's
has a
and it's a
full-size
large
tennis
lot
court.
in that subdivision, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but so if anyone asks us, they meet ordinance.
It does meet ordinance,
Yeah,
and
so-
it's really just a big house on top of a hill. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
And that was the
So
natural
I
grade
just
of the
wanted to
lot.
check,
Yeah.
I know you probably got a lot of, if somebody's calling me
we-
on it.
we've-
I'm
We've
sure the
looked at
city
it
has heard
very
about it.
carefully
right?
to make sure
right?
that nothing was out of compliance on
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
All right.
but it is quite large,
Mm.
right? Wow, okay.
Well, we'll
so I
have to
just
call
thought-
them to go play basketball. Any other communication?
Just really quick.
Okay.
So there is a house on, I think it's Second South and High Bench, like corner.
Okay.
Second South and High Bench.
Is that they
Alright.
call it?
Okay, all right, I'm with you. So-
Anyway, they built there's a big fence, big wooden fence going all the
Oh,
way
yeah.
around. Is that, in the front of it looks really tall to me.
Yeah, so I've also received complaints about this as well. So it's an interesting
200
It's an
south?
interesting property because they've fenced the entire front of their property.
Mhm.
Right, okay,
You
I
know,
know.
it kind of gives it almost like
Is
a
the
compound like fill.
fence- Is the fence have to be back off the sidewalk so many feet, or is it a corner lot or anything?
So the way our ordinance is written, as long as you're 10 feet into your property, you can then put your fence up
Right.
to the normal fence height, so
And-
6 feet.
Property starting as where? The sidewalk, the,
So the property typically on a standard development, you're
Mhm.
gonna see curb, gutter, then you're gonna see a little park strip, you're
Mhm.
gonna see the sidewalk,
Mhm.
and then 1 foot behind that sidewalk, that's where their property begins.
okay, so it has to
So
be,
from there, then they
11
have to be
feet
another
back from
10
the
feet
sidewalk.
back.
okay,
Within the front 10 feet, they can go up to 3 or 4 feet, depending on whether it's a
Uh-huh.
see-through or not.
right.
So just like a picket style,
Right,
that's kind of
right.
what we had in mind. I mean, so
So
Once
10
you get
feet
back
back, they
behind
can
10
go full
feet,
side.
most people, what they'll do is they'll have the fence come to the sides of their house.
Yeah, I've
And then
seen
so you can
that.
just approach the
But I
front of the
have seen
house.
some out around it.
But this is
before.
unique, you know,
Uh-huh.
the whole front of the yard is just fenced off.
Okay,
And it is, it
So
does
it's
have a
code?
10-foot setback?
it does.
Yeah, it is back 10 feet. Yeah, I actually went and measured it personally with the tape
Okay.
measure, so.
Okay.
It's
Well, they
it's
must
at 10
believe-
feet.
They must believe good
Yeah.
fences make good neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other communications? Do you have any,
I just
Austin?
had one thing,
Mhm.
so I think probably it was about 5, I think it was 5 of you went out on the field trip that we did. We
Mhm.
went and looked at some examples of height. So I just wanted to kind of discuss that really quick. So in the past, we've looked at height. The planning commission kind of made the recommendation, hey, we kind of think our ordinance is okay the way it is.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if any of if anybody's minds have changed after the field trip, or if you have any different impressions about what we should do with our ordinance.
Anybody else first, then I'll save my
I
comments for
mean, I'm
last.
still concerned about height, but I couldn't,
Yeah.
it opened my eyes a little bit to the problems that are that we have to deal with hilly properties and things. So I don't know that I have the answers.
It's almost more complex, more confusing looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard there was something in Alpine about a barn. built up on it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, never heard anything about it.
think
Yeah,
it's a horse or-
I think,
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's.
I think it's something that if we wanted to continue to look at, we could, I think, there's not a one size fits all condition that we could put on a lot. I wouldn't be opposed to looking at the conditions of lots that slope down from the street versus lots that slope up from the street versus lots that slope sideways. I think if we wanted to do anything, we would have to make it into those three buckets to distinguish, because I don't think you could write an ordinance that would cover all of those cases without creating unintended results.
So,
Yeah, that's a good.
so I mean, a lot of the reason we did this was due to a large barn.
Right.
And is there any way that we could address that situation in a different way?
Well,
Could
that's
could
kind
we,
of-
could we say, hey, this is a commercial property
yeah,
in
that's
our
a-
eyes?
that's a
Could
separate
we
discussion.
make that something that has to come to be approved
Well-
because it's commercial sized?
Yeah, but, oh, okay, so
Could
you're
we say
saying
that?
if your home is so big or if your barn is so big, then it becomes commercial
Yeah.
sized?
Yeah,
So super sized, we have a
yeah.
super sized.
Well, because I mean,
That might not
if the
be-
barn had been a normal size, I don't
Yeah.
think we would have had any complaint, but it is not. It is
So we
very
have to
large.
determine
Yeah, it's
what's a
extreme.
super size versus a normal size.
Right.
Um,
Is that possible?
So I have had conversation with, it was one of the city attorneys, Steve Doxey. And we kind of talked about, there is a possibility of saying something over a certain square footage
Mhm.
has a different set of requirements.
Yeah.
So you can craft your ordinance in such a way that you could create
okay.
regulations.
I mean, the
that
other
way.
point of that, and since we're bringing up that
Yeah.
that example, is that if that had been put, I mean, that's a sloping down lot. If that structure had been put down lower in the lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think
you-
10
right,
feet
you
would have
would
made a
have-
huge
Yeah,
difference.
you wouldn't have got, as many complaints, but it's right up at the top
Mhm.
level of the lot, where the structure was put, and it's huge, right? It's
Wait,
very large.
But which normally is what you want is a structure at the street level. I would say that it's the size that creates the problem, because a structure at street level is where you would want something.
Well, but
A
is it-
structure below street level is
Well,
a
it's not-
problem.
But
for
it's
debris
way
flow and
above
flooding.
street level. Like if you go
It's
to
above
it.
street
Well,
level, it's not at
which street are you
level.
talking
Yeah,
about?
but that is an issue. Which street are you
There's
talking
no
about?
street
Yeah.
to it.
If
But
you're
if-
talking, if you're talking
But they're
about
talking the front
Healy-
side,
Right,
yeah,
right,
it's
right,
way
right,
above the
right,
street.
Right.
If you're talking about the backside, then no, it's right at street level.
Yeah,
So
So-
Jane, I'm just curious, so,
Mhm.
because we had extensive discussions about, well, what if we did this, well, what if we did that? And then we were trying to think about all the consequences, known and unknown, intended and unintended. Well, this, well, that, and we thought we had a pretty good ordinance until, somebody figured out that with a large enough lot, you could build it up,
Mhm.
build it up, build it up, then
Yeah.
finally put a big structure on it, and could or would that ever happen again? But I'm just curious, after you went and surveyed, took the field trip and surveyed numerous lots and houses, was the conclusion that, well, this was an unintended consequence or outcome of what is otherwise a pretty good ordinance that we shouldn't change or modify, or what was the outcome of the field trip?
Well, I mean, that was my feeling, was that we looked at, because we looked at houses where the house had actually been dug down. And then to make it, because the hillside was going up, so they kind of dug into the hillside and then they had to put retaining walls in the back so that they could have a flat backyard. And yeah, to me, there was obvious that there was mostly working right. Mostly our ordinance is working correctly.
I don't
So-
know if the city council, I ended up not being able to come, and I went home and got on Zoom, and then there were technical difficulties, and the meeting kept ending for me or something.
Oh.
So I ended up I finally gave up. I finally gave up and just
Yeah,
turned
We
it
had
off.
quite a display
They-
going on.
Yeah, so that's what I
Yeah.
sounded. I think I texted.
They didn't really discuss it in the meeting at all.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a conclusion yet. My personal conclusion was what I just said, that I think that we probably still should look at protecting ourselves from things like that. And I think what Austin said is it's probably a multifaceted approach. To me, it was obvious that writing an ordinance for a lot that slopes downward away from the street, you can't use the same criteria as you would a lot that slopes upward. And that, but I do feel like we could craft an ordinance around those three types of lots that would actually prevent those unintended consequences. And then I think if you couple that with a size restriction before another set of ordinances or rules applied, I think that would cover it personally. Because the one with the riding arena is not actually on, like you said, it's not attached to a street in the normal way. It's a parcel. Someone could own a parcel of property and they can go out into the middle of their parcel and build whatever they want. A barn. And so that's where I think the size would need to be. So my personal opinion is it still should be looked at. I don't know how the mayor and city council felt when they were done, but that's what I think.
It was cold and so people.
It was
were like,
cold.
Yeah,
and
it was very
really-
windy.
We were getting literally blown over, so it kind of cut it
Yeah,
short.
when I called
Yes,
you, I
yes.
thought, they're out.
You
doing
should run
that.
over there
And
and
I
you
looked
like,
outside and thought, no.
Yeah, I
They're
know.
probably almost.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not that dedicated.
Exactly.
I think one of the things that, also that came out is there's a lot of discussion that says we shouldn't be using finished grade, we should be using natural grade and whatever.
Yeah.
And, the problem that you see, in this is that, somebody puts a road in, kind of like
Yeah.
what we saw in the
In the
ridge.
ridge at
yeah,
Alpine,
right,
where
right, and what's the natural, the
Right.
natural grade is
That's-
lost. in
it
this,
has been
right,
changed over the last 50 years.
Right, right,
So-
and so that's an awfully hard thing to do, is to talk about natural grade when.
Yeah, so I personally like the idea of in relation to the road.
Yeah.
In relation to the road, then what is the grade of the lot? So I have some
Yeah.
personal opinions about it. I think we should look at it. I don't know what the mayor or the city council thought.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we saw that in that one house, the house was 10, 12 feet above grade
Mhm,
Yeah.
because it was on a hillside. And so that was
mhm.
where you had to build it, really. You didn't have a lot of choice.
Right.
I mean,
And
Yeah,
then
you
on
didn't
the
want
other
that
side,
house
it
on
was-
street level, because they'd have to have like a 20-foot retaining wall in the backyard.
Right, yeah.
Exactly, well, that's why you
right?
couldn't do the
Yeah.
same the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
ordinance.
it
you
has
have
to
to, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
have to be crafted.
Yeah, so we'll have to bring that up with them and see if they want to look at it again. I personally think we should look at it again, but I'd like to get the city councils and the mayor's read on it too.
I think you're gonna be getting a lot more tricky lots, aren't you, as we go into the.
Well, that's the
foothills.
thing
we
is
are.
we are, and we're getting into,
But I mean, if we had a size ordinance of something,
Yeah.
then we could say, you need approval if your building hits a certain size.
Yeah.
And so then suddenly it becomes a problem for the developer. If he's gonna have to get that approval. He has to meet some, he has some oversight.
Yeah.
And that's what we lacked on that last one, was we had no oversight. Nobody could, right? Because there was no code to prevent it.
yeah,
no, it was in
Right,
that,
I mean,
in that
exactly.
code.
we don't, our code restricts, how close you can get or how
Right.
dense you can get, but we don't
We don't
really
wanna
do anything to say how you
be-
can't get too big, like,
Mhm.
we
Right.
don't really have.
Yeah,
And
a-
we talked about that, but maybe there's a point where we could say, and we might even be willing to approve that barn if it was in a different place.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, it kind of gets back to, again, some of the ordinances kind of are oriented to, and you don't want to lose our rural history and character of the city, right?
Mhm.
But, if you're gonna put a horse arena in and everybody has 20-acre and 30-acre farms, who cares?
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
about it, right?
Yeah.
But when you put it next to now what's a suburban neighborhood,
Well, it's in
Yeah, right,
relation, in relation to the
Sure.
buildings near it. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's really
Right.
Yeah,
more
I
of
mean,
what
that-
it is.
that-
Well, and
then
so
it
I mean,
becomes
and
an
this
issue.
Percentage
couldn't
of-
the same thing happen with the house,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Couldn't we have a house
You
come
can
in
have a
that is so
50,000 square
big
foot house.
that it's in front of everybody and everybody's gonna complain? It is happening all
Well,
over
we talked
already,
about
right?
that, it's
Yeah.
restricting
So to
purchasing.
me, it's something we could look at, to say,
Yeah.
hey, if you get this big,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to get some approval from your neighbors, from your city council, from your planning
Or if they
commission.
purchased, we talked about if they
Yeah.
purchased 2 lots and wanted to build across
Right,
the lot. We
yeah.
looked at that and kind of gave up on that idea, but
But I still think there's some some
But you see that, and
validity
you,
in-
and you see that happening in the Ridge, right,
Mhm.
where that's zoned for half acre lots, but people are buying 2 or 3
Mhm.
lots and then
Right.
building the homes across them, right?
Yeah.
And they're large homes, right, in a half acre zone,
Mhm.
area,
Well,
right?
and we just heard a citizen saying he built this place specifically so that the houses wouldn't be so large, because it makes a nicer community,
Right.
right? Specifically.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of, I kind of feel like that's an issue.
Okay, any other communication? Okay, next meeting is
It's
when?
actually November 16th.
Because why?
Fall break.
Fall
and then
break,
we
that's
have
right. I knew we
election
were
day.
meeting.
No.
Okay, election day and fall break. Wow, so we do not meet again until November 16th?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
gonna be a little bit of a break.
Awesome.
And good luck to a couple of our members.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see
yes.
how that goes.
How's the internal polling showing?
Internal polling.
Right.
Yeah, we have, we campaign and have no information.
Let's finish up our meeting really quickly. I don't see approval of the minutes on
There
here.
were no minutes in the packet.
Yeah, so the minutes, so a couple things on that. One, Marla, as you've noticed,
right.
hasn't been
She's on
here. She
leave.
had surgery. She's trying to work from home but she's limited in what she can do.
Okay.
In addition to that, we had someone that kind of transcribes and prepares the final minutes, and they actually quit on us. And so we're shorthanded on 2 fronts.
Okay.
So
All right. That explains why there's no minutes.
we
to
may
approve.
have 2 minutes to approve next time.
Okay,
All right.
well, I'll be looking forward to that.
Right, where's Sylvia when you need her?
Exactly. By the way, Jeff, Sylvia, who you're replacing, she would read through the minutes very carefully and fix every punctuation error or anything. So that's your, so now in case you're wondering, that's who you replaced. So, okay, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Including punctuation. Thomas.
I like a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A motion to adjourn
Second.
by Ethan Allen and a second by Alan McDonald. All in favor?